Let me show you how to change the mass airflow sensor in an Aston Martin DB9. In this episode of Aston1936.com, I'm going to show you how to change the mass airflow sensor in an Aston Martin DB9 V12. I happen to have my car in the shop right now doing its coil packs and spark plugs, but while I had it apart, I figured I'd actually take a moment to show you how you could change your mass airflow sensor. So the mass airflow sensor, and we'll get a closer look at it in a minute, sits up in the fender well here, and essentially the air filter hangs on here. Fresh air comes up this pipe and goes up to the engine. Sitting in this pipe, though, is the mass airflow sensor. So the air is going past it, and it's measuring in grams per second how much air is moving by. And then it tells the engine computer, and it adjusts how much fuel to add to the mixture. So this isn't going to be a course on how to diagnose if your mass airflow sensor is working or not, but I am going to show you how you can basically change it very quickly. It's an easy job you can do probably in about 5 minutes once you've got access to it. You're primarily going to need just one tool to get the job done. If we have a quick look at this screw head, this uses for some reason a security T15 Torx bit. I don't know why on earth they need it. So a regular T15 Torx will not work here. So I went to Amazon and I bought myself a cheap set of security Torx bits, and these actually have a tiny hole in the end of the Torx bit. So we'll see that it can go over top the pin in the center of the Torx. So this is going to work. So you're going to need this special tool. So it's good news is it's only about $5 for a whole set of them, and you'll be able to get the job done. Now the space that, if you're not going to be working up on the bench like me, if you're going to do it in the car, you're going to need basically a way to turn this, and I'm going to suggest that you do something like take a 1/4 inch socket on a 1/4 inch drive system, and you'll be able to basically get in over top and work on it in very close quarters. So you might want to have those, or if you're going to do it here on the bench, you might need a nut driver. A little bit of non-silicone based lube will be good, because there's a gasket under here that we're going to clean and maybe lubricate as we put it back together. And as always, having a shop rag handy is going to be helpful. So let's go underneath the car and get the electrical connector disconnected and see if we can get this thing out. So we're over here in the fender well. There's a mass airflow sensor on both sides of the car, one for each half of the engine. So on the right-hand side of the car, I've jacked up this corner, I've taken off the road wheel, and I've removed at least the front half of the fender liner. And I have videos to how to do all that I'll have linked up here. So now we can actually expose the mass airflow sensor. You'd also have your air box here. I have mine out just for better access right now. But here is our mass airflow sensor in that tube going up to the air intake on the engine. And the first step we have to do is disconnect the electrical connector. So this is a super important electrical connector, and this red tab they have on here is a safety catch so that it can't accidentally work its way off. So the first step you have to do is lift that catch up, then you squeeze in. Now you can actually squeeze this part of the tab, give it a squeeze, and carefully wiggle the electrical connection off the sensor. So with that out of the way, we can start to work on the bolts. Now we're going to go work on these on the bench so I can show you a little bit better, but I just wanted to show you that the wrench setup here, you'd just be in the tight space. You should be able to still get on each of the nuts and take them out, each of the bolts, and take them out here. So let's go over to the bench and take a look at how to do it for real. So we're back up here on the bench so that I can give you a better view of what's going on, what you'd be doing in the fender. So if you're working in the fender well, you'll be working in a tight space, and you'll get in here with your T15 Torx once the electrical connector is disconnected, and you'll just basically back out this simple screw. It's not very long. It's just threaded into the plastic. So that comes out easy peasy, or we could do it a little quicker up here on the bench using the nut driver. And that's it. out comes our sensor. And while we have it out, I'm going to cut in a photo here. We're going to have the same moment of discovery where I see the Ford Motor Company part number on the bottom here. And when you look along the one that's laser etched on the side here, this turns out to be a Ford 3W4A-12B79-AB sensor. Now, you could go over to Aston Martin and look this part up on their website, and you could purchase it from them. They sell it as their part number 4G43-08-10933. They'll charge you about $117. Or you could go out and Google that Ford part number, and you could probably buy this sensor for about 40 bucks. Aston did not make a bespoke mass airflow sensor. The engine computer that's in our DB9 is made by Ford. Many of the sensors on the engine are all Ford parts, so it's not surprising to me that this is a Ford part, and the aftermarket will be full of sensors that we could use that are far less expensive than the one Aston makes. But for the discussion here, we're just going to go ahead and use an Aston part to put it back together. Ta-da! Here's our new one. It's really just the old one. But if you're reassembling it, I want to point out a couple of things up close here. Now, there's a seat and there's a little rubber gasket on the new sensor that we want to make sure there's no damage to the sensor gasket. It's seated well. You want to make sure there's no crud in your seat from all the years of the car's operation. And I don't think it would be harmful to maybe just hit this with the tiniest little bit of lubricant, not silicone spray, because silicone spray can mess up your catalytic converters. So this is just a regular oil-based lubricant here. And then you're thinking, wow, can this go in the wrong way? And in reality, you could put it in backwards. It doesn't quite fit right. You'd have to be struggling with it. So the way to know which way it is this is the sensor element, goes towards the air filter, because the air is coming at it this way. This would also be a great time for you if you decided you were just going to clean the mass airflow sensor and you didn't want to take your whole air box assembly apart to get at it. You could just remove the existing sensor while you have it out, then spritz it with mass airflow sensor cleaner and then put it back together again. I have another article on how you can just change it while you're doing your air filters, and there'll be a link up here in the corner. But so you could just take this existing one out if you felt like you were going to be able to clean it. So putting it back in now is, we're a little bit lubricated, is just putting back the screws. I would start these by hand because remember we're putting a steel screw into a plastic part. And this is not something you want to torque hard. Really, if you strip this plastic tube out, you won't get a second shot at this to fix it. So just be really delicate as you torque down these screws. I'm just doing them just lightly snug. And we're back together again. It's that simple for getting the actual sensor changed. So now we're going to go and hook up the electrical connection back in the car. So once we've got the sensor changed, we just have to remember to hook up the electrical the same way, carefully refit it, and then once it's fully seated, slide the red tab back down. Well, that's it. This is honestly one of the easier tasks you can do in your Aston once you've kind of dug your way into where the sensor sits in the fender well. It only takes a couple of minutes to swap one if you've decided that you need to change out the sensor, or maybe you decided you're going to clean it. So down here you're going to find a link to my companion blog article where I'll probably have some close-up photos of the part, maybe some alternate ones you can go purchase, things like that. Up here you'll probably see a link to one of my related articles, something like taking the fender liner out, etc. Down here you could go ahead and subscribe if you like to get videos like this. You'll get automatically notified when they come out. And as always, I love to hear your comments. Please leave those down below. Thanks for watching.